One is the only edible fruit produced by an orchid, and the technique that made it a global commodity was invented by a 12-year-old enslaved boy. And one tastes exactly like chocolate pudding. This is everything you never knew about black fruits. Blackberry. Each blackberry is not one fruit. It's dozens. What you're holding is an aggregate, a cluster of tiny individual fruits, called drupelets, each containing its own seed. A single blackberry can pack over 80 of them. And despite the name, blackberries aren't actually black. The deepest colored ones are an extremely dark purple. True black pigmentation essentially doesn't exist in the fruit world. Here's the part that surprises most people. Blackberries were never domesticated until the 20th century. For thousands of years, humans foraged them wild. The thorny vines grow so aggressively that in Australia and New Zealand, blackberries are classified as invasive weeds. One plant spreads over 20 feet in a single growing season. In Britain, tradition warns never to pick blackberries after October 11th, the date the devil supposedly spits on them. Late-season berries do turn sour as temperatures drop. The folklore got the botany right. Fiber content, 8 grams per cup, higher than any common berry, more than a slice of whole wheat bread. The next fruit is one you eat every week, without ever thinking of it as a fruit. Black olive. Black olives are a fruit. Specifically a drupe, a stone fruit in the same botanical category as cherries, peaches, and mangoes. The olive pit is a seed. The flesh develops from the ovary of a flower. By every scientific definition, what you're putting on your pizza is a fruit, and black olives aren't a different variety from green olives. They come from the same tree. The only difference is timing. Green olives are harvested early, before ripening. Black olives are left on the branch until fully ripe. Same species, same tree, same branch, just picked later. Every olive on earth starts green, but raw olives are completely inedible. They contain oleuropein, a compound so aggressively bitter your mouth will reject them. For thousands of years, Mediterranean civilizations didn't eat olives. They crushed them for oil to fuel lamps, treat skin, and make offerings to gods. It took someone discovering that brine or lye neutralized the bitterness before olives became food. Olive trees are among the longest-lived fruit trees on earth. One tree in Crete, the Vouves olive, is believed to be over 3,000 years old and still bears fruit every year. Spain produces roughly half the world's olive oil. The entire economy of several Mediterranean regions depends on a single fruit most people think is a vegetable. And the next fruit was made illegal because it threatened to destroy an entire American industry. Blackcurrant. In 1911, the United States government banned blackcurrants. Banned. A fruit. The cultivation, importation, and sale of blackcurrants were prohibited at the federal level. Government programs systematically destroyed blackcurrant plants by chemical spraying. An entire species was targeted for eradication. The reason? Blackcurrant bushes serve as an alternate host for white pine blister rust, a fungal disease caused by Crenardium ribicola. The disease is lethal to pine trees. In the early 1900s, the American timber industry was booming, and pine forests were worth billions. The government decided the fruit had to go to save the trees. The federal ban was lifted in 1966, but many states kept their own bans far longer. New York didn't lift its ban until 2003. The result? An entire generation of Americans grew up never tasting a blackcurrant. One researcher estimated that only 0.1% of Americans have ever eaten one. Meanwhile, blackcurrant is one of the most popular fruit flavors across Europe, in candies, jams, liqueurs, and the French crème de cassis. The timing of the ban accidentally shaped American culture. While Europeans developed blackcurrant-flavored sweets, Americans built their candy industry around citrus and grape. That's why grape-flavored candy tastes different in Europe. Over there, it's blackcurrant. Europe produces 99% of the world's supply. The berries contain 4 times more vitamin C than oranges, and twice the antioxidants of blueberries. A nutritional powerhouse that was illegal for most of the 20th century. The next fruit built the global silk industry. Literally. Black mulberry. You cannot separate the mulberry from silk. Mulberry leaves are the sole food source for Bombyx mori, the domesticated silkworm. No mulberry, no silkworm. No silkworm, no silk. No silk, no Silk Road. One fruit tree underwrote the most consequential trade network in human history. The relationship dates back at least 5,000 to 8,500 years to ancient China. And a 2026 study published in Science Advances pushed that timeline even further. Cocoons found at a Bronze Age site in Uzbekistan confirmed that mulberry-based silk production had reached Central Asia by 2000 BC. nearly 2,000 years before the establishment of the historical Silk Road. The silk came before the road. Black mulberries, Morus nigra, are the tastiest of the mulberry family, far sweeter and more complex than the white mulberry that silkworms prefer. Native to Western Asia, they've been cultivated for over 4,000 years. The fruit is so fragile it begins to deteriorate within hours of picking. That's why you've almost certainly never seen a fresh black mulberry in a supermarket. They can't survive transport. One black mulberry tree can live for centuries. There's one at the Chelsea Physic Garden in London, planted in 1688, over 330 years old, still producing fruit. In 1609, King James I of England ordered 100,000 mulberry trees planted across the country to establish a domestic silk industry. The plan failed spectacularly. He planted black mulberries instead of white ones. Silkworms won't eat black mulberry leaves. The next fruit doesn't look, taste, or act like any other fruit on this list. Vanilla bean. Vanilla is a fruit. The vanilla bean is actually a seed pod, the fruit of an orchid. Out of the roughly 25,000 known orchid species on Earth, Vanilla planifolia is the only one that produces an edible fruit. The only one. In the wild, vanilla orchids can only be pollinated by one organism, a small Melipona bee found exclusively in Mexico and Central America. The flower blooms for a single day, sometimes just a few hours. If the bee doesn't visit in that window, no pod develops. This is why vanilla grew nowhere but Mexico for centuries. The French brought vanilla vines to colonies across the Indian Ocean in the 1820s. The plants grew, the flowers bloomed, but no pods appeared. Without the Melipona bee, the orchid was sterile. Botanists across Europe failed to solve the problem for decades. In 1841, a 12-year-old enslaved boy named Edmond Albius on the island of Réunion discovered how to pollinate vanilla by hand. Using a thin stick, he lifted a membrane separating the flower's male and female parts and pressed them together. Seconds. A French botanist later tried to claim the invention. Edmond's master defended him publicly. Edmond was sent plantation to teach other enslaved workers. Within 30 years, Réunion overtook Mexico. Today, Madagascar produces over 80% of the world's vanilla, every pod still pollinated by hand using Edmond's method. He was freed in 1848 when slavery was abolished. No payment, no pension. Later imprisoned, freed early due to his contribution, and died in poverty in 1880. The second most expensive spice in the world exists because of a child who was never compensated. The next fruit tastes like something it absolutely is not. Black sapote. Cut open a ripe black sapote, and you'll find dark brown flesh with the color, texture, and taste of chocolate pudding. Not vaguely, not kind of, actual chocolate pudding. The fruit contains zero cacao, zero chocolate. It achieves the flavor entirely through natural compounds, notes of caramel, honey, dates, and molasses that your brain interprets as chocolate. The Maya called it tauch. It's native to eastern Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central America, and belongs to the persimmon family, Diospyros nigra. That genus name means fruit of the gods, which tracks, because nature accidentally made a fruit that tastes like dessert. On the outside, a ripe black sapote looks like a green tomato. Nothing about its exterior suggests what's inside. The skin is inedible, but when you press a ripe one, it yields like a marshmallow. In Mexico, the pulp is traditionally mixed with orange juice or brandy and served with cream, an irresistible dessert that contains roughly 142 calories per cup. Black sapote contains 4 times more vitamin C than an orange, a chocolate-flavored fruit with superfruit nutrition and almost no fat. The tree grows up to 80 feet tall. Commercial cultivation remains limited. Farmers markets in Mexico, the Philippines, Florida, and Australia, but barely known elsewhere. Some argue the chocolate comparison is partly psychological. Your brain sees dark brown and creamy texture, then fills in the rest. But blind taste tests consistently land on chocolate or butterscotch. The next fruit will make your mouth physically stop working. Aronia, chokeberry. The name tells you everything. Bite into a raw aronia berry, and your mouth will dry out so completely, so instantly, that you'll wonder if you just ate chalk. The tannin concentration is so extreme it essentially shuts down your salivary glands. Chokeberry isn't marketing, it's a warning. But here's the paradox. This fruit that tastes like punishment has the highest antioxidant score of any measured fruit on Earth. On the ORAC scale, Aronia scores 16,062, compared to 4,669 for blueberries and 3,446 for acai. Not twice as high, not 3 times, nearly 4 times the antioxidant capacity of blueberries. Aronia berries, Aronia melanocarpa, are native to North America. Indigenous peoples use them for centuries to cure meat. They belong to the rose family and are completely unrelated to chokecherries, despite the similar name. Chokecherries are mildly toxic. Aronia is safe, just brutal on your palate. Anthocyanin concentration, 878 milligrams per 100 grams, compared to 130 to 190 for blueberries. That's what gives Aronia its near-black color. Poland and the Czech Republic have cultivated it commercially for decades. U.S. production is growing, but most Americans have never heard of it. A 2021 review found daily Aronia supplementation significantly reduced blood pressure and LDL cholesterol. The most potent antioxidant source hiding in plain sight. Black cherry, wild black cherry, Serotina, is the largest native cherry tree in North America, growing up to 80 feet tall. The fruit is small, dark, and almost too bitter to eat raw. But that bitterness masks something sinister. The leaves, bark, and seeds of the black cherry tree contain prunicin, a cyanogenic glycoside that releases hydrogen cyanide when metabolized. Livestock that eat wilted black cherry leaves can die within hours. The wood is another story entirely. Black cherry lumber is one of the most prized hardwoods in American furniture making. Rich, warm-toned, and worth more per board foot than most other domestic species. For centuries, the tree was more valuable dead than alive. The Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, and Cherokee used black cherry bark medicinally, brewing it into cough syrups, a practice that directly inspired the cherry-flavored cough medicine still sold in pharmacies today. The flavor you associate with cough syrup isn't artificial. It's a direct descendant of a Native American remedy. Black cherry also produces one of the highest concentrations of melatonin found in any fruit, a compound that regulates sleep cycles. A fruit that poisons cattle, builds furniture, treats coughs, and helps you sleep. All from one tree, so rankings. Most surprising identity, black olive. Most unjust origin story, vanilla. Strangest taste, black sapote. Most nutritionally extreme, aronia. And the one an entire government tried to erase, blackcurrant. Which black fruit shocked you the most? Is there one I missed? Drop it in the comments.